Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's plan to remove Islam from the public sphere as part of Vision 2030 is being implemented through new restrictions during Ramadan. An English translation of the announcement of bin Salman's new restrictions during Ramadan in Saudi Arabia is circulating. The original orders were published in Arabic on the Ministry of Islamic Affairs account. Although the English translation is awkward, it clearly indicates that there will be restrictions on Ramadan this year in Saudi Arabia, which align with bin Salman's plan to remove Islam from the public sphere as part of Vision 2030. The first two restrictions stated in the announcement are simple. Imams should not be late or absent, and the call to prayer should be on time. The third point is where the restrictions become apparent. According to the translated announcement, considering the conditions of the people in Taraweeh prayers, the completion of 200 prayers in the last 10 days of Ramadan is sufficient, with enough time before Fajr to avoid hardship on worshippers. Although the translation may be awkward, the message is clear. The worshippers should be considered during Taraweeh prayers, meaning they should not be excessively long. Specifically, during Tahajjud in the last 10 days of Ramadan, they should also not be lengthy. Without delving into the reasoning behind this order or debating its impact on the worshippers' well-being, it is apparent that the order aims to shorten the prayers. Remember this as we move on to the fourth rule, which states, according to the English version that's being circulated, to follow the Prophet's guidance in the Qunut supplication during Taraweeh prayer and to limit it to Jawami du'as and authentic supplications while avoiding hymns and intonation. Despite the awkward translation, the message of the restriction is clear. Keep the supplications short and stick to the authentic ones. In other words, don't add your own supplications. Imams often include supplications for current affairs, such as the liberation of Palestine. But this order now bans that, and it's straightforward. Keep it short and stick to the script. Moving on to rule number 5, the order emphasizes the importance of reading approved books within the mosque group. This may seem like a harmless rule, but it should be understood within the context of bin Salman's efforts to de-Islamize the education system in Saudi Arabia. His supporters argue that reducing the hours spent on Quran, Islamic studies, and Arabic language will allow for more critical thinking. However, critics have been imprisoned, and even religious leaders have been used to justify bin Salman's policies, including the introduction of entertainment events that are seen as a threat to Islamic identity. The Minister of Islamic Affairs has even referred to those who denounce the de-Islamization drive as deviant. Therefore, the rule on approved literature during Ramadan should be seen as a warning to conform to bin Salman's anti-Islamic agenda. Basically, it means only read approved literature that does not criticize bin Salman's agenda and entertainment authority. Moving on to rule number 6, it states that the installation of cameras in mosques must comply with specific regulations, which prohibit taking photographs of the imam and worshippers during prayer and broadcasting the prayers on any media outlet. This means that during Ramadan, it is not permitted to listen to recitations of imams or prayers from other mosques in the kingdom. It is worth noting that broadcasting prayers from Mecca and Medina, which are considered the most holy and sacred places for worship, is allowed. This suggests that the ban is not related to the privacy of worship or religious beliefs, but rather part of a wider initiative to reduce the prominence of Islam in the kingdom and promote Vision 2030's agenda of increasing entertainment activities. It is speculated that if bin Salman had the opportunity to silence even the two holy mosques, he would do so, but the backlash from last year has made him cautious about provoking it again. To put it simply, in 2021, bin Salman banned the use of loudspeakers in mosques for Quranic recitation and limited their use for the call to prayer to only 1/3 of the volume. This ban remains in place even during Ramadan. Supporters of bin Salman argue that this is due to noise pollution, but there is no evidence of Saudi citizens complaining about it. So it is banning the broadcast of prayers and recitation and banning the use of loudspeakers. Moving to the 7th rule, it should be noted that the English translation is inaccurate. The Arabic version requires the imam to gather information, on those who will perform itikaf, a practice that has been used by other authoritarian regimes to compile lists of devout Muslims who are then subjected to surveillance and monitoring. This is concerning as Saudi Arabia has a history of sweeping arrests of religious figures and activists, and implementing this rule could result in the government having a list of worshippers to monitor after Ramadan. In short, this rule, requiring individuals to provide their private information for monitoring and surveillance when performing itikaf. While these rules may appear harmless, its consequences are far-reaching. We have now come to the 8th rule, which is quite simple. It prohibits mosques from collecting donations during Ramadan. Donating during Ramadan is a common practice among worshippers, as it is believed that feeding a fasting person will earn the same reward as the one who has fasted. However, this rule now prohibits this practice. Rule number 9 prohibits iftar from being held inside the mosque and limits it to a designated area in the courtyard. Typically, Muslims gather in the mosque during Ramadan to break their fast, where dates and drinks are served and sheets are rolled out on the floor. This custom is cherished by Muslims worldwide, but the new rule restricts it to a quick enterprise in the courtyard, after which worshippers must enter the mosque to pray. The rule also prohibits the use of tents or temporary rooms in the courtyard. Some argue that this rule aims to maintain cleanliness, but this has not been a significant issue in the past. Instead, it appears to be an attempt to reduce the attractiveness of Ramadan at the mosque and discourage worshippers from gatherings. Moving on to the 10th rule, it prohibits bringing children to the mosque during Ramadan. The rule states that it would be disturbing to other worshippers and would cause them to lose their concentration. This rule is similar to the Soviet state's practice of banning children from mosques in order to prevent the influence of Islam on their upbringing, aiming to raise a generation detached from the religion. So why would they ban children from attending Taraweeh in the mosque? Taken together, all these restrictions, shortening prayers and supplications, censorship on literature, banning the broadcast of prayers on all platforms, collecting information on those who perform itikaf, banning donations, prohibiting iftar inside the mosque and disallowing tents, and now banning children, do not appear to promote Ramadan as a central part of the country's identity. Instead, they seem to be designed to aggressively restrict Ramadan and limit its influence in society. In conclusion, Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's plan to remove Islam from the public sphere as part of Vision 2030 is being implemented through new restrictions during Ramadan. It is apparent that they align with bin Salman's anti-Islamic agenda and have far-reaching consequences for the worshippers and the Islamic identity of Saudi Arabia.